we're going to work through one of my favorite flies, and that happens to be a Scud. We're tying this on an 1120 Daiichi in a size 12. I do tie this down to about a size 16. Any curved Scud hook will work fine. You could even put this on just a standard wet fly hook if you desired. Today we're going to be weighting the fly with lead tape. We're going to do that before we even get started with the thread. So we're going to trim ourselves a piece of this lead tape to about 1 millimeter wide, and then remove the backing on it to expose the sticky back. What we're going to do is we're going to create a nice weighted underbody with this by touching it here on the back, down around the bend just a little bit. Get myself started up the hook, and I can just pinch off that excess, go all the way to the eye of the hook, turn it back on itself, stop just short of where we started it, turn it back again on itself, and work our way just shy of where we started previously. And what that does is it gives us a nice banana shaped underbody. That's our weight, and it also forms the beginning of the fly. For thread today, I'm going to be using 30 Denier GSP gel spun by Veevus. I like this thread because it's stronger than heck, and we don't build up a lot of bulk. We got quite a few materials to be tied in, so I'm just going to start my thread behind the eye of the hook, get my way over top of the lead. You don't need to cover this completely with that. Just get it back and forth, get everything kind of secure. Alright, for the tail today I'm going to be using just a hen feather. You could use partridge, works well. So this is just a gray hen feather. This happens to be a whiting American hackle. So I'm going to just get rid of the fluff on the bottom, and then I'm going to tease out a small clump, even up those tips, and then if I grab just the tips, I can grab the feather and just pull it away, and that keeps those tips nice and even. Now for length, I want about gap of the hook, so I'm just going to eyeball that gap of the hook off the bend. I'm going to go right down till I'm just off the end of that lead. And then I just trap this right to the hook. That does a couple things. That keeps that shape going, and it also gives the thread something to grab into. Alright. We're going to have 3 things tied to right to the base of the tail. So we're going to tie everything right to that point. The first thing we're going to tie in is Scud Back. Or you could use Stretch Flex, which is what I have here. This is Stretch Flex by Rainey's. This is just a gray color. I tie this also with a clear color. But this is going to be our first piece going in. We're going to tie this in a little bit up the hook shank, and then we'll make our way to the base of those tails, making sure we're where we need to be. Now this needs to lay flat, so when we bring it over it makes the shell casing. I'm going to advance my thread, and then we're going to get ourselves a piece of this flash. Now this is material called Flashback, comes in a sheet, and I've trimmed this to just narrower than that body material that we're using, or that Shellback material, Scud Back. Clean up this edge just a bit. We're going to tie this in exactly the same way we did the Scud Back. We want that to lay right on top, flat on top of the hook, right at the base of the tail. So those are 2 materials are coming off exactly the same spot. Our rib today is going to be 6X monofilament. So this is just a spool of Tippet material I had laying around kind of retired. There's plenty on here to do a lot of flies. I like the monofilament because it stretches and then returns to its shape. If I use a wire rib at the end of the fly, I'm going to smash this thing, and that rib has a tendency to break, or if it gets overstretched, it does not go back to its original shape. So we're going to use monofilament. Now we have a slippery material and a slippery thread, so to get around that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just chew on the end of this a little bit with my teeth. Don't tell my dentist. And that gives the thread something to bite into. So I'm just going to slide this underneath right in front of my thread. And this is going to go to the base of the tails as well. That's coming off at the bottom. Now dubbing today, I'm going to be using Arizona Scud dub. I'm not sure if this is even available anymore, but I've got every color in a couple packs of it, so I'm going to use it up. But regular Scud dub from Hairline, and now they have a UV Scud dub out as well, would work perfectly well. So we're going to dub ourselves a fine little noodle of this. Keep this sparse, keep this tight. We already have a nice underbody with that lead tape. We don't want to overdo the size of the fly. So I'm tight. I'm dubbing this on my thread. Nice long noodle. Fairly tight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use up that excess thread, get right to the base of those tails. And then in touching turns, I'm going to move forward. You can see that's pretty tight. I'm going to run out. That's alright. Just add ourselves a little bit more. So we want to stop right behind the eye of the hook. Try to keep that banana shape. Get right to the shoulder of the eye and park my thread. So the first thing to come over is the Shellback, the Flashback, and I'm going to tie this down nice and flat over the top with 2 turns. 1, 2, then I'm going to reach in here and put a half hitch in, and that'll keep that thread from falling off the front of the hook. So there's our half hitch. Then we can slide our scissors in here and cut off that flash material. Now I have 2 items left in the back. I've got my Scud Back and then I have my monofilament. I'm going to bring these up together. I like to do that because the torque from the rib is going to take it to the far side of the hook, and I can compensate by moving this Scud back and forth to keep it central right on top of the hook. Now the fun part is getting the first one started, because it tends to want to fall off the back of the hook. So what I like to do is to take 1 turn right into the body, and you'll never see that clear monofilament. And that'll keep everything from sliding off the back of the hook. So we'll get our first turn on. And now I can come in here and make sure that this stays on top. Nice and flat. And we'll just rib this all the way up until we're 1 turn away from the end of the hook. I get 1 more turn in there. What we're going to do is we're going to pop that back, reach in with our thread, and tie this monofilament off. And we don't want this to come out. Luckily we have this strong thread, so I can put a good half dozen turns on there. And that'll stay right there. Reach in, trim off my monofilament, and fold this back over. Tie that off, a couple turns, get back on the bare hook, And now we can do our whip finish. We'll put 2 4-turn whip finishes in here. 4 or 5. Support that hook eye. Tighten it up. And that broke off perfectly in the right spot, so we don't need to trim it. Trim off our tag end of our Scud Back, and now we're ready to do a couple final things to the fly. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a piece of Velcro that I've trimmed to a pretty narrow piece that I can slide right up underneath the hook. I can go back and forth. What that's going to do is it's going to tease out some of that dubbing, and that's going to give us our legs. If you have a couple in there that are real long, just go in with your scissor points and nip at them. Don't come in straight. You don't want to make it look like a toothbrush. Now the final step to really get it to play the part, a little trick that Oliver Edwards does to his Scud. We're going to slide a smooth pair of pliers, so these are smooth jawed, right over the top, and we're going to flatten this. Take your time here. And then we'll just make sure everything is where it needs to be, and that's our finished Scud. So, get out, tie a few of those. These fish very well. Thank you.